What's up, everybody? This is DJ Unprotected, and you are tuned in to The Output. This is a podcast about fashion, pop culture, music, and some other goodies to enhance your day. Now, this is a special episode because we are actually hosting this one live on YouTube as we make this episode. That means we are definitely more raw and uncut than we normally are. So we like to keep things fun on this show, and I think going live on YouTube is something that we're going to excuse me. This is something that we're going to continue to do in the future because it's a great opportunity to allow that live connection. And then the video is automatically already uploaded to YouTube and it saves on editing time. I like to save time. We all know that. The company knows that. I like to just get the content out there. Obviously, I do, put in a fair share amount of time editing the audio to make sure that it sounds professional. We are professional, baby. This is The Output. We don't short game any of this stuff. But anyway, very excited about this episode. 30 episodes. I mean, you think about the number 30. Dude, that's a lot, right? You know what I'm saying? So we're making moves. Now here we are in 2021, a couple weeks into it, and hopefully everybody is, moving forward with their goals, their whatever they want to do to better themselves. We've talked about resolutions before, but it's really about those daily impacts and making those changes to grow constantly. And there's a lot of things like going on in the world, and especially here in the US, where there's some people who could probably use some self-reflection. But most importantly, we have to understand that positivity is the way to kind of combat a lot of the bad things that we can experience and witness in this life. But I'm not getting preachy, not this quick in the episode. That's going to come a little bit later. I don't know. You just may have to find out, right? So this week, okay, this is something that I enjoy within the show because I have like OCD about, when there's quiet throughout the show. Like radio's rule is don't have silence. And I know that like when I DJ, one of my biggest fears is like a track going out or you get distracted and don't have something queued up and then all of a sudden you got blank air. So every show we got a little something fun. So every time I take a drink, you're going to hear something like this.
Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged.
All right, so that's what we're going to roll with this week. So every time you do that, you know that I'm hydrating. Got to keep it healthy, especially next week getting my second COVID shot. So got to stay healthy through that and keep building that immune system. Now, this week's intriguing question that we offer each week, this one is, what is a bad habit that you have? And I think this is a common question that kind of gets brought up. I would say it's probably within the top 3 questions when I go on dates that people bring up. It's like, what are your deal breakers? What are like your pet peeves? And then if somebody really wants to take the time to get to know you, they may ask like, hey, what's a bad habit that you have, to kind of see if that's something that's going to annoy the shit out of them, or to even understand that, okay, that you do some things that you should probably tweak because probably annoy the shit out of somebody. And I think that's what, bad habits come down to, affecting other people. Now, obviously, like smoking, bad habit just because of health concerns. But there's some other ones like, snoozing a lot. That's a bad habit. Maybe spitting, being a mouth breather, like at work. You've heard those people. I think, those are bad habits. Okay, so I want you to think about that question. Hopefully you can talk about that with some other people. I'm going to get to my answer towards the end of the show. Now, before we roll into this episode, real quick, if you are tuning in to live YouTube land, I want to thank you for watching this clip. If you get a chance, hit that thumbs up and also consider subscribing to the Aztec Nation YouTube channel where we post all of our episodes and all of the company's entertainment content. But I do want to say thank you to my returning listeners. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, and whatever type of platform that you like to use, really do want to say thank you. It means a lot to have that type of support. Like I say every week, if you hit me up on Twitter, I will shout you out. So get at me at Unprotected. And another way that you can really show us support that I would appreciate, it only takes like 3 seconds, if there's any opportunity to hit a thumbs up, to hit a star. I know on Apple Podcasts you can rate it. On Spotify, one of the best things I think you could do is follow the show. And if you already do that, then maybe hit that share button and post it to your socials. We've got great things coming up this year, and we're going to do a lot of audience and fan appreciation. I want your participation, and then we're going to repay you with some appreciation. I can promise you that. So no matter where you're listening, please hook us up. I really appreciate it. It helps drive and get this show out there for others because, sharing is caring, and we all know that caring is very much important right now. Let's start this 2021 with some good vibes. Get some good karma in the mix right now. Karma's good. We like good karma. Nobody wants upset karma. We like good karma. So let's get that moving right. Share the show, and I really appreciate it. Guys, episode 30, man, I was super excited to talk about the content that we were going to cover in the show. One of the topics we're going to definitely talk about is winning the lottery. Now, I've never won the lottery. I think I maybe won like some small amounts, like $12, $20-something here or there. But we're going to cover that because these jackpots right now are so huge. Like we're looking at, the Powerball is I think up to like, 600 and something million dollars. And then Mega Millions, which is, on Friday is like 740 million. Dude, that's a lot of money. That could save a lot of people. Or it could hurt a lot of people. So that's a topic we're about to cover here in a moment. Another thing we're going to discuss is music. I love music. I want to talk about maybe where the future of music may be going, kind of where we're sitting at currently. Given the situation, festivals, music, everything's kind of canceled. Everything's transitioned to listening to music on your own. And then the last piece of this show is going to be, ties into music a little bit, but it's going to be a little thing called Reach Out. And then obviously before we close this thing out, I will tell you guys my bad habit that I believe that I have for sure. And I'm sure my good friends, ex-girlfriends would know what this bad habit is for sure. It's a couple of them, but I don't know. I can definitely pinpoint one for sure. So let's roll into this, right? Winning the lottery. Now, how people mess this up. I think that there are some crazy stories out there of how the lottery has significantly changed people's lives. But there's also stories that has been completely pictures of horror because nobody had the right type of management, maybe the right friends in their corner. Who knows?
Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged.
But let me tell you why, I think people mess this up. Part of it is, I'll just explain what 20-year-old me would have done if I would have won the lottery or had won a piece of the lottery. Now, I remember working shift work when I was like 20 years old. And at the time, it was probably the Mega Millions. And it was up to around like $200 or $300 million. Okay, that's when the jackpots were big at that number. And I'm talking about not trying to age myself here, but around 2005, 2006, okay? Definitely 2006-ish, maybe even 2005. I don't know. But it's one of those group picks where you put in a couple bucks and they bought a bunch of numbers and then you all split it. So it was probably about 14 or 15 of us getting in on this. Maybe a little less, maybe 8 or whatever it may have been, but we would talk about in a circle, like most of the time people do, talking about what you would do with that money. Now, my brilliant 20-year-old ass was like, yo, I'm going to buy a Lamborghini. I'm going to put these custom seats on there, and the one that say P-Dubs, which was a nickname that my friend had given me growing up. And I'm going to have it all decked out, custom lights, go to West Coast Customs, get my ride pimped out, even though it's already pimped out as the Lamborghini. And I was like, I'm going to get a huge mansion. I was totally going to MC Hammer the shit out of that situation, and that's a fact. So looking back at that, it explains how so many people can mess it up, but it's a fun thing to think about, right? If all of a sudden you go from, say, making $50,000 a year, and to the next day, you now know that you are a multimillionaire, you have several $100 million that are about to come your way. Maybe you do the annualized amount where you get whatever that may be over 20 years, which I think is actually a pretty good decision, in my opinion, because it may protect you from making mistakes. Now, here's what I think happens, okay? Most winners forget that without investing the money, especially if you do a lump sum, if you get all that money at once, and obviously you're going to pay half of that in taxes, but you may have that initial money to afford a luxury type of lifestyle, but you don't necessarily have that residual income coming in to sustain that type of lifestyle. That's what people forget. You get this money, you buy into this luxury life, and now you're beyond keeping up with the Joneses. Now you're like recreating these standards that everyone else, the Joneses, need to keep up with. You know what I mean? Like trying to buy really expensive boats and houses and whatever, but that money's not continuously flowing in. And I think people lose that respect, or they forget the respect and value of the money because they have so much. So obviously, like, there are good stories where this has obviously, like, winning the lottery has changed people's lives for the better. It brought them peace. It allowed them to go live in a wonderful community. They could retire. They could spend their time with families and friends, all of that jazz. But life is filled with good and evil. We've got the devil and angel on your shoulder, okay? And no matter how you look at it, you know what I'm saying? There's always a shadow on one side of the tree when the sun's shining. So you get the good and bad, right? And so what we're going to discuss here is some of my favorite lottery horror stories that I've looked into. It's very interesting to me. And I started looking into these, honestly, it was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And it was, again, when the lottery was really high. Remember when it was near like 1.9 million, or no, I'm sorry, when it got to like 1.2 billion, and it was like ended up being like, I think 3 tickets ended up winning, but we kept buying them and talking about it at work, and there was like lottery pools again, you know what I'm saying? So these discussions came up, but I was sitting there and looking online, and I was like, okay, what do you do when you win the lottery? And one of the first things that came up was like, do the opposite of what these people did. And there's always like a common recurring thing about people who have won the lottery and it turned out really bad. One, they either got hounded by people, they fell into drugs and depression, they really bought into like this whole saying like I'm a badass, and they started making really bad decisions. And you're going to hear with some of these stories that are my favorite, and we're going to talk about it a bit. Because it's like, it's super, interesting to get this aspect of like how people can function in these situations. You get a lot, you know what I'm saying? And it's beyond like, so you gave a man a fish. You didn't teach him to fish, but you gave him the fish, and they literally just eat for a day. So I know that if I were to ever win the lottery, I got, my boy Phil, who's totally going to be my financial advisor, and he would definitely check me and be like, you're about to spend some stupid cash. But I'm not 20-year-old me anymore. I know I'm going to use my money wisely. And maybe at the end of this little segment here, I'll talk about like some of my thought process and what I would do with that money. But let's get into these horror stories. So this first one really like blew my mind, because this guy totally was like, it was like one of those saving grace situations. And when you could see the pictures of this guy, his name was David Lee Edwards, and, just paint a picture. Prior to winning the lottery, he was a former drug addict and felon, okay? Lived in Florida, by the way. I think it was Florida. Pretty sure it was. But lived in Florida, and he ended up winning the $27 million jackpot in 2001 while unemployed. Now, here's how Mr. David Lee Edwards fucked this whole thing up. So he blew through the money, okay, by purchasing a $1.6 million house. So if he won $27 million and they took a percentage of it, you know what I mean, for taxes, like probably half. So what would that say? Like maybe he walked away with $12 million. So you have someone who was a former drug addict, felon, you know what I'm saying? Like, probably didn't have positive people in his corner to be like, hey, we got to be smart about this. And he definitely didn't. So let me continue. So not only did he buy this mansion, okay, but he bought some racehorses, right? Not only did he do that, he bought a fiber optics company, invested in another limo company, Okay, so there I can kind of see, all right, maybe like he didn't look at the better business deals. You know what I mean? I don't know if like if I won the lottery, my first thought would be like, yo, I'm gonna buy a limo company. I don't know this. Like, why would you want to do that? It's probably a flooded market. Like, how do you prove you're the best limo company? Like, there's others out there. I don't know. Like, how you get into that market? You either got to have some really dope ass limos, offer more of the type of the vehicles, but that initial capital cost has to be like pretty damn high. Like, you know what I'm saying? And so that's where I'm kind of like, might not have been like that best plan there. Okay. And then buying a Lear jet. Now, dude, I've done research because one of my goals, and we talked about this before, is one of my goals is to have one of those private jet club memberships where you pay a yearly fee and then you can kind of travel and fly wherever you want. This dude purchased a jet, which is one of like the most, like, it's the dumbest thing you could do. I mean, there are like rules that rich people say, like the Wolf of Wall Street, you know, if it flies, fucks, or swims, or I'm sorry, flies, fucks, or floats, you lease it. You don't buy a jet. The cost is like even the cost of maintaining those things and just storing it at an airport is like $100,000 at least. Okay, let alone every time you fly it and you pay probably, you know, the price per hour of that thing flown for the pilots. And anyway, the dude purchased a jet. Who knows if he was renting it out? And then he made the brilliant decision, like 20-year-old me would have done, is buy a $200,000 Lamborghini Diablo and definitely filled in with other luxuries. Now, you may be saying, okay, well, this guy hooked himself up and so what? You know, bought a lot of expensive things that, you know, rich people tend to have. But this dude's, I mean, I'm sorry, like, you know, I guess you could probably consider somebody winning the lottery as rich, but how they spend their money if they're wise about it, I don't know if they're so rich, then they start to get into the acting silly, right? And this dude started acting silly. Now, I'm not trying to get in the conversation of, you know, being a you know, he was a recovering drug addict and all that jazz, right? But you give people a lot of power. Okay, what was it? The Tony Montana said, first you get the money, then you get the power, and then you get the women, right? So they were going for the money and the power. But, you know, like it's the whole angel and devil on your shoulder thing, man. Opportunities are going to come up. So anyway, him and his wife, okay, Mr. David Lee Edwards and his wife, returned to drug use, and they lost all of his money, the millions of dollars he had, and ended up living in a storage unit surrounded by human feces. Like, dang, how do you go from being a millionaire and then a year or two later, you're like living in a storage unit? I doubt it was a heated or cooled one, living around human feces. Like, dude, that just sucks. Like, I don't know if they found him dead in there, but dude, that's just horrible. Like, that's a sad story. Somebody unemployed, recovering drug addict, boom, won all that money and then just blew it all. Don't be like David Lee Edwards, okay? The next one, here's another one that I thought was pretty good. And you may have heard this story. It's not a new one. Andrew Jack Whitaker, okay? With a $350 million Powerball ticket he won, even though this guy already had $17 million in his own personal finances. Dude, like, you've already got capital like that in the bank, your net worth, and then you won several $100 million. Man.
Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged.
So, this story gets awesome because this is not what 20-year-old me would have done with this money. But he ended up, so this guy, Andrew Jack Whitaker, ran into a lot of legal issues. Don't specifically know what they were, but there's a lot of problems and lawsuits. And he had an issue with a love for strippers. Now, this was an older gentleman, and he also had a love for booze. So it was reported that he was basically visiting a strip club every single night. Now, look, you know, strip clubs, they are what they are. It's a source of entertainment, okay? So you're like going there and you know you're going to spend money. Like, nobody just goes into a strip club and is like, yo, I'm going to hang out here for free. Not happening. You're going to pay to get in. You're going to probably buy a few drinks, and then they're going to keep charging your ass while you're hanging out in there. Like, it's how the system works, right? because there's always a show around. So here he is hanging out at those places, okay, and sometimes not the best crowd. I mean, even if you're at a strip club in a, whatever you want to define as a good area of town, like there could be some issues. Well, Andrew Jack Whitaker ran into some issues because he had a lot of money stolen out of his car. Now, there's several different kind of reports on this. One was saying that they stole like almost $500,000 out of his vehicle. Another one said it was like what, 1 million, or they stole like, I think, 1 million out of his vehicle. It was probably like several instances of several $100,000 being jacked from his car. And guess where it was stolen out of? Near the strip club. Another issue was the people he was hanging out with. So one of the strip club owners and some of the ladies drugged him and took some money from him. So this dude was just balling out, spending cash and bringing all the cash with him. Now, for somebody who had, personal finances that were worth like $17 million, he really didn't handle this money correctly. Maybe he was thinking, fuck it, I'll just go out and have this cash on me, and if I lose it, I lose it because I still have millions of dollars. Like, I don't know, but you were $315 million Powerball ticket winner. Like, you got it. Anyway, so that's how that ended. But it gets worse. He was robbed numerous times, and after 4 years was totally broke. Ended up with nothing. Whoops. Okay, this next one, Billy Bob Harold Jr. won $31 million in the Texas Lotto. So what happened with him is he's donated lots of this money to charity. I can dig that. Lots of it, you know what I'm saying? Like, there has to be a point where you got to stop the line. But let me continue. So part of that charity included 480 turkeys to the poor. I absolutely dig that. That's cool. Like, you win and then you give back. So you feel like you even have more. But then the spending got out of control. He was harassed by money from people that he knew. And after he separated from his wife, this part gets really sad. His son found him dead from suicide. Now that kind of sucks, to go out of control. And so a lot of these stories, like, there's no happy ending to it, right? But it's interesting. Like, you imagine, like, dude, if I won 31 million, okay, in this case, not 20-year-old me who would make dumb decisions and buy Lamborghinis and all that, but 31 million after taxes, because you got to factor that in. Like, if you win a $31 million like jackpot, that's not what you're taking home. You know what I mean? That looks good on that little big check they give you. Little big check. So silly. That big ass paper check they give you, okay, for the photo op, but you're not getting that much. So I don't know. I'd probably do that over 20 years, and then say you get like $500,000 a year or 300,000 a year. That's pretty solid, man. You don't have to work at that amount, and you can travel kind of when you want. And you could even afford a private jet club membership. That's not splurging. It'd be like $100,000 a year. You know what I mean? So, and then you still got $200,000 coming in. You know what I mean? But anyway, so that just sucks. Like, found him, and his son ended up finding him dead. So that's pretty shitty. Yeah, don't be that guy. Don't be like Billy Bob Harold Jr. That would be bad. So here's another one. Mr. Willy Silly. So here's one that, like, could happen because we've all been in those group picks at work. But Mr. Silly won. Mr. Silly won in a group pick with 15 others, and it got him about $4 million, okay? So I forget, like, the total amount, but he ended up walking away with about $4 million. So apparently the beggars, the lost relatives, the TV producers who, like, wouldn't stop annoying the shit out of him, and anyone else who was just bothering him, asking for money, handouts, all that jazz, like, made that winning not so much fun. Like, so him and his wife are doing okay. They still travel, enjoy life, but they're saying that it was kind of a nightmare. They lost friends, they had to seclude themselves, and apparently the local news...
Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged.
That was not a drink. That was a burp. Mic control had to back up. But yeah, so apparently it just was not a good situation. I saw a couple of reports about that, and absolutely admitted that winning probably caused them more drama than not winning. But obviously they don't have to work anymore and they can travel and live their dreams. So good for you, Mr. Willy Silly. Okay, this next one is pretty entertaining. And this is probably almost as entertaining to me as David Lee Edwards. Now, this guy's name that we're going to talk about now is Michael Carroll. I just want to caveat, okay, for a second. I am not trying to talk shit about these people. I'm trying to tell stories that are entertaining. It's no different than like the true crime stories. I'm not like hating or putting bad vibes about these people. I'm just telling everybody like what they did. And I'm not trying to justify myself here, but I just want to put it out there. Not here to talk shit. Found these stories interesting and it's entertaining. So hope they're doing better. The ones that are still living and didn't die or commit suicide or whatever are, have learned from whatever decisions they decide to make. Maybe they'll win twice like that lucky woman in the 80s. Whatever. Okay, so this next one, back on track. Michael Carroll. He was 19. Okay, already rocking a police ankle bracelet. So he had issues with the law, had some like problems with whatever was going on in his life, right? When he collected his lottery winnings of 14 million. 19 with an ankle bracelet. Dude, you got fucking hooked up. There are some of us who don't wear ankle bracelets and would love to win a lotto, and your ass got it at 19. Okay, 14 million. Dude, if you half of that, 7 million over 20 years or 7 million up front, give yourself a little budget, hook your mom up, whatever you got to do. Man, there's a lot to talk about on this one. Hang tight.
Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged. 08 Roger, what's the surface temperature? Secondary guidance systems engaged. 08 Roger, what's the surface temperature?
Okay, so what happened to this dude, all right? Because of his kind of approach to all this money that he had, he got this, the given name from people around him, Lotto Loot, L-O-U-T, for buying a mansion and other lavish items. And just like, Mr. David Lee Edwards, right? Buying a whole bunch of shit when you don't have residual income coming in. You're buying money into the lifestyles of the rich and famous, but you don't have that continuous like money and that definitely not that fame coming through. Okay, so let's see what happened here. He went through that money so quickly and ended up broke. And now, like, I guess, well, I don't know now, maybe things have shifted, but when this was written, he ended up broke, living on unemployment and living in his mother's house. Okay, making $300 a week. Now, can you imagine that story? Like, if you're down and out in life and people are like, hey, man, what happened to you? Oh, dude, well, things were pretty shitty when I was 19. I had issues with the law and drugs and stuff and whatever happened. And then I won the lotto. Still did a bunch of other dumb shit. Bought a bunch of stuff. And anyway, I went broke. And now I'm just kind of chilling in my mom's basement. Like, yo, no judgment on the dude, but I can't say, like, if I had first met somebody and that's the story they tell me, I'd be like, man, that's one outstanding motherfucker that I feel like I need to hang out with. Like, I want to hang out with people who get blessings and, like, expand on their life. I don't know. Like, that's wild, man. I hope this dude's doing all right, but that's a story I don't want to tell. I want to tell a success story of winning a lottery or whatever it may be, working your ass off, and then still doing productive things with it. Okay, so here is the next one and the last one. And I think this one's got a positive ending. Now, you guys tell me if you think this is a positive ending. Definitely hit me up on Twitter at Unprotected. I think this one is. Okay, so this is about a person, and he won a very modest amount of $5 million. His name is Curtis Sharp, right? And he blew it all in 5 years. So $5 million in 5 years, $1 million a year. Probably was like spent quicker than that. You know what I'm saying? Like more than just $1 million a year. I bet it was like a lot at first and then kind of teetered off and until it all was just gone. But he spent it in 5 years on family, cars again. Apparently people get this money, and I don't know what the fascination is of like buying really fancy, expensive cars when like, when you think about it, like sure they're flashy, but how effective is like driving a Lamborghini? when you go over a pothole and completely rip out like, the bottom end of it, or rip off your bumper because you hit a curb. How effective is that? Like $200,000. Could you park anywhere with that car? Nope. What happens when you drive your Lamborghini up to a nice restaurant or whatever? Your ass is paying for valet too. So now that vehicle costs you more money. Don't get me wrong, like Lamborghinis are a nice car. Maybe one day there will be one in my garage, but it's not a necessity. If I had $1 million, I wouldn't be like, oh, that's the first thing I'm going to buy. Maybe a lift kit for my Jeep. You know what I'm saying? But like the effectiveness, like where's the money value? You can't really go that fast on the highways. You're going to get a ticket. Oh, hey, let me buy this car that can go like 260 miles an hour. I don't know. I'm not that much in. Anyway, you're not going that fast on the highway without getting busted or in an accident. So, oh man, I digress. But anyway, so he spent it on family, cars, real estate, and women, right? Remember the whole, Tony Montana thing? You get the money, the power, and the woman. It just happens. Like there's other situations and stories of people who won the lottery and they got divorced, separated. There was a lot of problems because people will go out and seek other things, I guess. But all right, what happened later on? Okay, so after he spent all of his money and blew it, he found God and became a pastor. And after all that stuff that he went through, what was his advice? Get away and clear your head before spending any of your money. So, to all of you listening to this podcast, if you happen to win, maybe like hit up my PayPal, donate to the show. So, we could like maybe step up the camera game, show me some love. But after you do that, step back, clear your head before spending your money. Just take his advice. Take Curtis Sharp's advice. Take a step back. Get out of the clouds and realize that, one, you can't give your money to everybody you know. You could, you just won't have anything left. A lot of people are going to ask for it. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that.
008, clear to runway 0. Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged. Synchronous orbit achieved. Minimum 08, Roger. What's the surface temperature? Secondary guidance systems engaged. 08, Roger. What's the surface temperature?
Okay. I realized I hit the wrong button initially, but back to this, all right? So the advice is to just relax, count your blessings if you win, no matter what the amount is, and then just really make good decisions from there. Because look, it's not all grim, and, getting those type of blessings shouldn't be seen as like a negative thing. Like, yeah, you got hooked up, man. Like, it's awesome to win the lottery. It's awesome to win when you're at a casino or whatever it may be. But, don't go blowing it. Take advantage of it. Like, if you can quit your job because you win enough to quit your job, do it. There, have been people who were like, hey, winning the lottery completely changed their lives. Sure, they had to seclude themselves from, friends and family members who were begging for money and, harassing them and to avoid lawsuits and things like that, because man, you get money, people will find a way to sue your ass, okay? But they seclude themselves and they say hey, it is nice to live in a gated community, to have your laundry dropped off and things like that. You know what? So if you get that, you get some added luxuries and some freedom to your life. Dude, mad respect for me, but that's what I'm saying to you guys. I hope somebody wins that I know. That'd be really cool. That'd be dope, man. But yeah, just don't be like any of these guys, especially David Lee Edwards, Michael Carroll, all these cats who messed up. I think the Andrew Jack Whitaker one, that one kind of makes your head hurt. You already had millions of dollars, and then you won. Okay, not a hater. The rich get rich. That's cool. Part of the game. But the rich got rich out of luck in this one, but then just wasted it. For strippers, man, they're only there because you got the money. They don't like you. They like your money. They like the green. Like the lights on the wall. If you're watching this video, they're green. I still got my Christmas lights hanging, but they're not plugged in. I'm going to take all my Christmas stuff down this week. So I guess it's a good segment to this next portion of the podcast. as we cruise into it, I will say, yeah, I haven't taken my Christmas decorations down yet. I guess I'll do it this weekend. I didn't do it the prior week, like after the 6th. I was like, oh, I'll do it on the weekend. Definitely didn't do it. Spend like my whole time here in the studio, which was great. Was making some techno music. I love it. So I'm working on my next project that's going to come out in probably like less than 3 months. I would say by like April, if not May. Last year I released a project in May called This Is How I Feel, and it was awesome. So this year I may do the same thing, put this project out in May. But I mean, it's cool. It's always good to be creative, and for me, it's a point of expression, and I feel like I've got a lot of things to say on this next project.
Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged. Secondary guidance systems engaged.
So that's what I was doing this weekend, not taking down Christmas stuff, right? But this next part of the podcast is what I think is simple, okay? It's called Reach Out. Simple yet effective. And I would like everyone who's listening to this podcast right now to take a moment, okay, after the show, but right now just think about someone that you would like to reach out to see how they're doing. Maybe it's somebody that you thought about several times. I do believe that like when we have those moments and people pop into our minds and we keep thinking about somebody, that's kind of like a hint to be like, hey, reach out to them. Okay, whatever you may be like believe in spiritually, but could be the subconscious mind saying, hey, hit them up. Like they may like to hear from you. But think about that. And I want you to, after you're done listening to this or whatever, or while you're listening to it, reach out to them. Reach out to a friend, a family member, someone you haven't spoken to in a while. Genuinely hit them up and see how they're doing. 1, it'll probably brighten your day. 2, it'll probably brighten their day. So take that time to think about somebody and just give them a call. Have a good conversation. Reminisce. Tell some good stories, See what's going on. Ask them, hey, what would you do if you won the lottery? I don't know. But get in the conversation and really show somebody that you genuinely care, because why am I bringing this up? Well, a few months ago, okay, I came across music from this one artist that goes by IO, and it's I_O, but it's really cool because it looks like, it's a smiley face with like the one eye, and you got to check it out. But anyway, I really like the music. It came up on like listening to techno, my Apple Music, radio stations. And you can tell there's a lot of techno and rave influences, but I like it because it's not just plain. Like there's really a lot of creative and inspiring stuff in this music. So I like the music. It wasn't predictable. It wasn't the same like, 16, 32 beats, whatever. I'm not trying to get DJ on you, but it wasn't cookie cutter. You're like, some songs he may have started with just like a cool, like orchestration, like build of like some pads and some piano, vocalist singing, and then all of a sudden they'll go into hard-hitting techno beat, and that was the track. It wasn't like a chorus, verse, chorus, bridge out, none of that. Like there was no like formula to it. It was just like really cool, creative, interesting music. And so I was looking up this artist now. I've liked their music, and I even talked about some of their music here on the show that was in my playlist. But yeah, so I looked, and because I wanted to know, like when I was reading this book called How to Steal Like an Artist, it's supposed to be a kind of book about the fundamental idea of being creative and getting through roadblocks, but doing things that everyone's been doing over time. Like all artists, I guess, steal. They're not like, illegally taking other things. Like it's not perjury or, oh, my bad, not perjury. Plagiarism, okay? It's not that, plagiarism. But, you're getting inspiration and you're studying what the people you look up to do. It's like, if you want to be a composer and if you really liked what Beethoven did, you read and study his music sheets, and same thing with Bach and all those guys who did great things in their time. Like same thing. If you really love hip hop, you study hip hop music and you're like, shit, I want to be like this artist, So I like to study, these producers and creators of people who make music that I enjoy listening to, because it influences what I like to create. So in my research, recently looking into, this guy, IO, this artist, it turns out they passed away back in November, on November 23rd. And it was like a sad time. Prior to their passing, they made some social media posts that involved questioning life. You know what I mean? And throughout the year, I would say, like, looking back at their posts on Instagram and Twitter, that there was some like things that were mentioning either feeling lost, questioning the value of their life, mentioning things like not having balanced emotions and balanced hormones and things like that. So there was a lot of things going on. It's really sad because you don't know the exact reason how they passed away, but because of that, it's like the family probably kept it secret, but I would say it was probably from, suicide or something. So it is sad. I really like the music. And that's what I'm saying, like, reach out, because here was someone who's an artist, and who knows, people may have reached out to him. I'm not saying anybody didn't, but you just never know what a good conversation could have, or the impact it could, have on somebody. So take that time to reach out to somebody, because yeah, man, it just sucks, like, so here's someone who has made music that I really liked, and they're not going to make that music anymore. And, I'm just going to try to use what I appreciated from their craft, and hopefully that inspires me to make great music on my end. People are like, hey, how'd you come up with this project or whatever? I'll be like, dude, listen to tons of IO's music, and the dude was great, like super talented, I mean, he had a lot of momentum. Like, that's just sad. Like, dude was doing rockin' festivals the past few years. 2018, like, what, Billboard's dance music chart said this is an artist to look out for. DJ'd at Ultra. I mean, you could see all the celebrity DJs who commented on his stuff. Tiesto, Armin van Buuren, man, so many. Laid Back Luke, the guys who've been rocking the game for years are shouting him out, man. That's like a special thing. So that's why I bring that up. Reach out. You just never know what that positive conversation could have. Y'all can hit me up. Twitter @unprotected. Okay, so let's talk about, here's this next one. The last piece of this is, let's get my insight into this week's intriguing question. And what's a bad habit about you, or what's a bad habit you have? Not about you. It's not about you. It's not about me. So what's a bad habit you have? Okay, for me, it's a tie between two. Kind of thought about this, bad habit. I would say, okay, I am a professional snoozer. I am really good at that. I will set alarms to give myself that 9-minute snooze. I know I've got it. I will set it to give me that. I'll set the 9-minute snooze, a 5-minute backup alarm, typical. Like, I will sit there and I know it's unhealthy. Snoozing isn't good for, like, it isn't good for your mind. Like, it's not. Your brain's like, dude, what the fuck? Like, we're either up or not. We up or not. You know what I mean? You go into those weird state where in those 9 minutes, you get into those weird, really, like, almost like a lucid dream, because, like, your mind, like, quickly jumps back into, like, that deep thought or whatever it was involved with, and then you're really not comfortable. So, like, every 9 minutes, you're, like, hitting a button, like, that's all you're doing. And so I know there's plenty of information out there saying why you shouldn't snooze. It's just easier to just get up, but laying in bed is more comfortable than getting up and getting ready for work, in my opinion. But the other one, I would say chewing gum. I love to chew gum. Like, I will definitely do it until that piece of gum is, like, getting hard. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, I will do it. It's not chewable, whatever. And according to, like, my dentist, you should really only chew gum for like 20 minutes and then spit it out. But for me, sometimes that shit will be in there for like an hour. And it's really weird now because we all have to wear masks, and I'm always at work, we have 100% mask policy. So I will, like, change masks, like a cloth one. I like the other ones that aren't like, cloth or cotton or whatever it may be. I like the ones that are kind of like those cheaper medical ones, but they're not really medical. You know what I'm talking about? The ones you can get in, like, Costco, Sam's Club, Walmart, whatever. Just the disposable ones. I like those ones because you can kind of breathe better, but you can't chew gum with them because as you chew, the mask goes from, like, your nose down into your chin. You know what I mean? Just because it gets pulled down. So but I'll put on a cloth one and then just chew for like an hour. So I would say it's a bad habit because I'll do it in meetings. I'll just get it. Now I don't chew with my mouth open. It's just an enjoyable experience for me. So I would say those are the two things, but I would love to know what you guys like, what's a bad habit you have. Hit me up at Unprotected on Twitter. I won't call you out negatively on this one, but I will shout you out for, being a participant of the show during next week's episode, which will be episode 31. Guys, we are vibing. 2021 is awesome. It's going to be blessings on blessings. I'm really excited and looking forward to the things that are going to happen this year, to get some DJ gigs, to continue on with the podcast, get some guests in here. It's going to be really dope. So listen, I want to thank you all again for tuning into the Output with me, DJ Unprotected. This is a podcast presented by Aztec Nation. I hope that you're picking up what we're putting out. We got a lot to say. Tune in on your favorite streaming platform next week for a brand new episode, and we're probably going to go live again on Aztec Nation's YouTube. So if you just look for the Output with DJ Unprotected, subscribe to that YouTube channel, and we will see you live. All right, so have a great weekend. Continue to be safe and be smart with your winnings. All right, guys? So thank you again. We out.